Hello, welcome back to the channel. So Harmony is probably the strongest path in the whole game, and basically has been since the game came out, but I've been kind of wondering for a while, who is the best Harmony character? Because a lot of them are really good, and, fill basically any role that you would want for a Harmony character. But I think that there are 4 characters that I think are the main contenders for the best, starting with May. I feel like since May came out in 1.6, people kind of forget how good she is. Like, obviously her main use is in break teams, like, Firefly or like Rappa. But she can still be good outside of that in some teams, like, she's a good partner for casters, or even on some Finite teams if you're going for a no-sustain kind of build. She is also, like, the only real support that actually works with Dot, though High Ceilings has kind of taken that spot, since now you're mostly just gonna go for like a triple Dot setup. But even then, just looking at her kit, it is really good. Her skill gives a 32% damage increase, and 50% break efficiency for all allies, which is, really good. And you can activate it for free, since her technique makes her activated at the start of battle, so you don't even need to wait for her turn to get the buff. And her ultimate gives 25% alt-type wristband, which is one of the best stats in the entire game, since it just allows you to just do more damage straight up without the enemies actually, resisting. She's also able to slow down enemies because it prolongs how long they are broken. The only thing that really holds May back is that besides break, most other teams that you would want her in, there is another option that kind of does the same sort of job, but just better. Also, break isn't as helpful as it used to be, since most of the 3.x DPSs don't really care that much about breaking the enemy, and more just care about doing, like, big nuke damage. That part of her kit isn't as helpful, since break isn't really being pushed as much anymore, but don't get me wrong, she is still very good. She just isn't as, like, insane as some of the newer ones, I think. But moving on to someone I think kind of really started this trend of just broken Harmony characters, which is Robin. She is like the perfect support for almost any like fast character and just characters that want to attack a lot in general. Like, she has everything. Her skill gives a 50% damage buff to all allies, which is twice as much as May's, which, like, to be fair, May also gives a break buff, but still. She gives 20% extra crit damage for free by just having her in the party. She's also the only character in the game who can actually advance the whole party, at least without Dance. Now, it is on her ultimate, so it is a bit harder to get access to, but as long as your build isn't just awful, you should at least get her ultimate, like, once her current ultimate is over, or basically, like, the turn after. Even though getting her ultimate is a bit of what holds her back, since her ultimate has a pretty high energy cost of 160, so it can be hard to get sometimes if you don't have enough energy regen. And she only really benefits like really fast characters, so it can be harder to utilize her ultimate's action advance sword on certain teams. So she's a bit more specialized, but on the teams that she is good in, she is like the best option in those teams, like Follow Up and that kind of thing. Now we get to some of the like newer characters who are also just insane. Basically, like, any 3.S character is kind of broken, honestly. Starting with Tribby. Tribby is just... she has everything. Like, she has anything you could want in a support character. Her skill gives 24% alt-type wristband, almost for free. Like, yeah, it costs a skill point, but still, in most teams they are running her in, she's gonna be skill point positive most of the time. And she also gives free damage like Robin as well, along with making the enemies take increased damage. It's a lot better than some nihility characters that do the kind of thing, because it's not a, like, debuff applied to the enemy, it's, like, an effect from the field, so that the enemies can't resist it. Like, she's also really easy to build, since she scales off of HP, so you mainly just want to give her, some sort of damage, and then just give her a bunch of HP as well, and then some energy regen as well, but she's definitely a lot easier to build than some other supports. She can do, like, good, consistent damage with her talent, even though I would say that if you want her to do, like, a lot of damage, she does definitely need some more higher investment, so that is probably the only sort of downside to her. Because most of the time her damage is, like, just okay, but most of the time you're just using it to activate other characters' stuff. I also would say that, like, she's really good as a general support, but she doesn't have that much, like, niche synergy with a lot of characters besides, like, casters, just because casters and his whole team mainly cares about HP. But you could say that she mainly like really benefits AoE characters more, since her buffs get a lot more value from AoE characters, and she generates a lot more energy from AoE with her A6. But even then, most characters now have AoE, and even the ones that you don't have AoE, you wouldn't even want to use her in that team anyway, and you'd rather just use another character, like Archer, for example. You'd rather just use Sparkle or something, you know? So I don't really feel like that's a downside to her. I feel like that's just her, you know, not being designed for that. And while I am not really counting Eidolons in this video, since I feel like that's kind of unfair, if you do have her E1, I think she becomes like the most broken character in the entire game, since she gives true damage to the whole team. And we know how good true damage can be because of Remembrance FC, who is still the only character who can give true damage without Eidolons, and is insanely good. So giving it to an already broken character is kind of nuts, honestly. Moving on from Trippy, we now get to the final character, who I think has honestly only gotten better and better as time has gone on, which is Sunday. Like, when he came out, I don't think people expected him to be as insane as he is. Like, he has everything you could want in a support and more, you know. He has great synergies with a lot of characters, especially, you know, summon characters like Jing Yuan or Goliath, or, you know, characters that need a lot of energy like Saber. But even if you don't get that 50% damage increase from, you know, characters with summons, even just getting 30 is still really good, because he also has an action advance sword tied to it as well. And his technique allows him to give another 50% damage increase at the start of battle, because, you know, why not? He didn't have enough already. Like, his ultimate is probably like one of the best parts of his kit, since he gives a huge amount of crit damage and energy, which basically almost every single DPS can use, besides maybe like, I don't know, like Fei Xiao and Acheron. I think like Finon as well, but that's kind of it. Even then, I'll get to Finon in a second. And he is guaranteed to give at least 4 in energy because of his A2. And he has a Dispel. Like, he has everything. The only real, like, sort of weakness that he has is not having that many great light cone options, since he mainly wants one that gives him energy. I mean, he can use, like, Dance, but he's gonna have a harder time getting his ultimate back consistently, because you basically want to have that every time the buff runs out, since he only gets extra energy at the start of battle. But even then, like, there's some characters that still want to use him anyway that don't use energy. You know, like I said, Finon, who Sunday is almost a requirement on that team. So now that we have gone through the 4 contenders, who do I think is the best? Well, Ranmei, while she is very good, does get outclassed in most teams besides Break, even if she can still be a good, like, general support if you just don't have those other characters. Robin, I think, is really good, but I think is a bit more on the specific side than some of these other characters, so I think the main point of contention is between Trippy and Sunday. And while I think Trippy is very good, I am going to have to give it to Sunday. Like, Trippy is a very good general support for almost just any team, and, like, you can't go wrong with just having her on your account. Her buffs, one, aren't as strong as Sunday's on some teams, and Sunday just fills a lot more niches than Trippy can. Like, he has so many teams where he feels almost necessary to be on, like, a Goliath basically needs him to even work, really, you know, like Finon, like I just said, because of him wanting to, you know, get targeted by single abilities. Like, there's so many characters that need him on the teams, and he's also a really good just general support, because his buffs are just insane. Even on characters like Fei Xiao, who don't use the energy because of the action advance sword that he gives, and just the crit damage being really good. Like, I honestly can't believe they made this character the way that he is. Like, if you have Sunday, you almost don't really need any other support from most teams. At the end of the day, I think that even if Sunday is the best out of all the Harmony characters, just getting any of these characters that I talked about today is great for your account, because just having a support in general is what boosts your damage to that next level. I do think some people do undervalue how important supports are for your team. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.